This is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich with the Sheriff's Report. In studio with me today, I have Natalie Poulson. She's an educator in the Spokane region, and you started a little group, a little network that's kind of expanded quite far, and it's a group of educators, and you did that out of frustration for what you've been seeing in the schools. And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not aware, in District 81, the FBI is actually investigating a school district for public corruption. That's what the guise of this is. I've never seen that happen before. And sadly to say, it was not unforeseen. We all saw this coming. I remember the panel discussion that started us down this very bad road many years ago, and it was a panel discussion that had District 81, it had members of the community, it had the NAACP, Rachel Dolezal was there, and the things that I saw that night and the things that they were talking about, and it was all about disparate treatment of young African Americans, disparate expulsion rates of young African Americans, and what I heard was no one is held accountable. That was the end result that they wanted, was no one held accountable. And I went, that night I went, okay, we're in for some really bad times, and those bad times are here, and District 81 is in, quite frankly, chaos. And you and your fellow educators, and quite frankly, many parents in this region, are tired of it. They are fed up. Give us a little bit about you and why you did what you did.
So I'm native to Spokane. I've been here my entire life, so I'm very invested in my community. I have two older children that have gone through the Spokane Public Schools specifically, one Shadle grad and one North Central grad. So I feel I'm very invested in my community. Our taxpayers pay for public education, and I'm a public education teacher. I definitely have a stake in the game. And there is frustration as a teacher, and I would say as a parent, just didn't feel I was being listened to. And it was really challenging with some of the students and some of the policies coming down that were kind of put on us versus let's have a conversation and talk about what's best for kids. So I got involved with I started in a backyard. There were 3 teachers, and it's grown to about 190 some people that we kept meeting at Audubon Park, and it grew and it grew. And we've really tried to look at our rights and have conversations about what we feel is best for our kids and for our families.
You talked about your rights, and you also didn't want to violate anybody else's rights, and you also didn't want to cross any lines.
Correct.
And you and I, over the course of the last, 4 months almost, I think it's been, have had several discussions, and each time it was, look, we don't want to cross any lines.
Correct.
And we don't want to be seen as the extreme. We are just teachers, we're parents, and we're frustrated that no one is listening. No one seems to care, and it's basically, shut up, it's our way or the highway, just go away.
Yeah.
And I feel your frustration, because I've felt that way for the last several years, especially since 2020, where it seems like if you have any kind of a point of view in anything, you are demonized.
Yep.
And I can take this back to, November of 2016 is when America just went like this. Now, it was already kind of fraying because of August of 2014. That's where this country really started tearing itself apart. It tore itself apart over a lie that was based in Ferguson, Missouri, because, what we've been told about that event, that officer-involved shooting event, did not happen. Michael Brown was not shot trying to give up. He was not shot as it was portrayed. He actually attacked that police officer and took his gun away from him at one point. From that point on, I've watched this narrative grow. And in 20, I watched more things explode. And I watched the council culture hit really hard around that time. And you've seen that. You've faced that.
Yes, I have.
Just recently.
Yes, I have.
And, why don't you, if you feel comfortable about it, talk a little bit
Absolutely.
about it, because you made you accepted a simple offer of, oh, you can meet over here in our church, and the next thing you know, everything went really sideways.
Yes, it did. So I actually have two examples. I'm going to go back since you mentioned that I came to you first, because I really wanted to approach working together with our school and our school board. And in a letter that I read to the school board, I stated very clearly, I said, my goal is to create a coalition of open dialogue with mutual respect and dignity. And that got portrayed in a Spokesman Review article very negatively. We got called all sorts of names, and it baffled me. It was definitely that narrative of how can you misunderstand that goal? And then as we kept going, I decided that it was a good idea to try and create an event where the title of it was Restoring Educational Liberty. I think everybody can agree with that. I don't know anybody that could argue with that topic. And I spoke there just talking about some concerns I had and how we could come together and have some parental action. And then we had a couple lawyers come up and talk about our rights and things that we could do to support our children and our families and our community. And just because I called around to different churches, and there was one church, I just talked to the person that kind of oversees the building. I didn't even talk to the pastor, but his building was available. He said, absolutely, come on over. And so we used his building. And because we used the building, I got all sorts of negative emails and press about the event just because it was in a certain building.
And, no idea.
None.
Oh, great, thanks for the offer. And the sad part about all of this is that if you don't seem to drink a certain narrative of certain people, you're demonized.
Correct.
The media plays their part in this. I doubt that any of the media really came and talked to you and went, hey, help me out a little. Explain what's going on. You automatically got labeled because there are trigger words for the media and for certain activists. Throw liberty in anything, and you are an extreme right-wing lunatic. I
had no idea.
I'll tell you straight up that it's a trigger word. Sad.
Yeah.
But that is the way it is. And, there are extreme right groups that have really demonized the term liberty, patriot, and everything else because of the way they've used them. It's really a very bad situation and very sad for our nation that, certain elements have corrupted those terms. And I'll tell you straight up, many of the right-wing groups that call themselves patriots, they're far from that, very much far from that. They have stolen the identity of the American people, if you will, and they use that term very badly. But without any interaction, can we sit down with you and find out what's your goals? You suddenly were into Spokesman Review, and
I was called a white supremacist.
White supremacist,
which is fascinating. My children are biracial, so that is very far from the truth. And in fact, I have always been a teacher of unity and treat everyone with respect, and that's how I have always been.
Yeah. But I'll be very blunt with you. Especially in the opinion cycle of the Spokesman Review, Sean Vessel. Since 2016, he has become so blatantly biased, and he drips with the venom of council culture. And if you speak any language other than the extreme left side, you're demonized by Sean.
Yeah, I don't even know how he came up with his conclusion, because if you read the letter that I gave to the school district, I showed it to you first. It was very positive. It was trying to problem solve.
It's because you dared to stand up as a parent, and let's face it, there were forces out there labeling anybody at that time, any parent that stood up to a school board, as radicals, as demons. And Sean does this all the time. I mean, I just faced the venom in a column last week.
That was my first experience. So,
It will only get worse.
oh, great.
All right? It only gets worse with Sean because Sean doesn't take the time to find out the facts.
That's
Sean
unfortunate.
misrepresents the facts on an ad nauseum basis. I mean, he's accused me of things that I'm like, Sean, you do realize that I don't run the jail anymore, right? You understand this. So all this stuff that you just said about my opinions or what happened on during this time frame were totally wrong. What are you going to do about that? He never corrects his works. He never
Oh, that's
corrects his
unfortunate.
mistakes. But like I said, because of what you're involved with, you face that, and you got that label put on you.
I did.
And what's it been like for you since that label?
Well, luckily, I'm surrounded by a lot of strong parents, I guess I should say, and educators that believe in what we're doing. We really are trying to stand for freedom and parental rights. That's our number one thing. We want parents to have the choice, be the primary stakeholder in their children's lives, especially in education. So I guess I kind of stay on the positive side. I definitely, reading that article and then the comments that follow it, and if you read the article, I sound awful. I mean, it sounds pretty bad, and I don't even know how he could have come up with that conclusion. And
Because
then
somebody came and told him. That's how this works.
yeah,
Sean doesn't reach out and talk to people or look for the other side. He has, I call them little birds, that fly up to his windowsill and fill him in on all this information that they think he needs to know, but he never looks at the human side of anything. He doesn't look at the damage he's doing to the target of his poison pen.
and it definitely is doing damage, because my goal is to collaborate. It's to be, that coalition with the elected school board, and that's
But you
what it
can't-
should be.
But it's very difficult now that
It is.
you have the label.
It is very difficult.
And, Lord be the elected official that reaches out and tries to collaborate with you or tries to have, a dialogue with you, because suddenly they're going to be demonized also. And it's just an amazing cycle that we're in. And, the goals that you're looking at, I think that the far left has grossly misread this nation. Virginia would be a prime example of what happened when they misread this nation. Virginia went Republican this last cycle, much driven by the issues that you're talking about right now.
Saying parents didn't have it
That
right.
parents' voice in their kids' education. I don't know what's gone wrong with our school boards. They're elected officials. They're supposed to be representing the voice and be the voice of the people. And especially towards the educators, going, here's what our community wants out of our education system.
Right.
This is what you need to deliver. But that's not what you're seeing.
No, I'm definitely seeing that they'll listen to public comment. There's no back and forth communication. There's a refusal to sit down other than one-on-one. So they have agreed to sit down one-on-one. Well, that's not what we're asking. We're asking for maybe kind of a town hall or even a small group. Let's sit down and have a conversation amongst multiple school board members and multiple parents. I'd even say multiple perspectives. I'm not asking to sit down and just be heard. I'm asking to have a conversation and start working together to solve some problems.
And that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what elected officials are supposed to do. I mean, you called, you wanted to meet with me.
Correct.
It's not that difficult, folks. There are some activists out there. Oh, it's impossible to get a hold of it. No,
No, it wasn't very hard. No.
all
Talk to
you
your
have to do is call.
secretary, and I mean, you're busy. We had to coordinate some schedules, but she was amazing, so it was not hard.
So, I mean, when I hear that, oh, you can't get through the iron curtain, if you will. Okay, what curtain to begin with, and did you even try?
And I'd never met you before, so I was doing it, just called up your secretary. So,
And again, elected officials, in my opinion, have lost this part of being an elected official.
right.
I listen and I talk to a lot of people. I don't agree with people all the time, and I let them know. I understand where your concerns are. I understand what your goals are, but I can't support that. I mean, it's just not something I can do. But it seemed really amazing to me to watch the struggle you were going through, just trying to have a dialogue, just trying to have a simple conversation.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing that people might be wondering out there is, okay, what's the next step? I mean, what is it you really want to accomplish?
I really want to accomplish sitting down and having that open dialogue. And I would say not even once, that it becomes a regular thing. Once a month, once every other month, where they actually make an effort, and I mean the entire school board, to sit down and have an open conversation. Because again, when you're at a school board meeting and a public comment, they won't interact. It's just 1 or 2 minutes. You say something and it's done. There's no follow through. They always say they'll meet with you, but as I tried to get them to, I have many emails that say, oh, we'll meet one-on-one.
Now, being an educator, talking to your school board, it has to be a little bit of a juggling act there,
A little bit.
because jobs could be at risk at times when you are standing up and look, we disagree with what's going on in our schools. What's that been like for you, as far as your bosses, the school board? Any repercussions?
Yes, there definitely has been some repercussions. I'm actually not allowed. We finally, looks like we may be having a meeting. We're allowed to have 3 to 4 people, and I cannot attend that meeting. So there's definitely some repercussions. And part of the reason why I started this whole thing was the positivity of it. Hey, they should want to sit down and have a conversation with their constituents. That makes perfect sense. And I was shocked at how challenging it has been.
So what's the logic or the reason that they've given that you're excluded?
I have an email that says, oh, why I'm not included, because I took my mask off one day. And
But there are no more mask mandates, so why would you be excluded now?
I'm not sure. I was given a termination letter a week after Inslee said that he would be lifting the mask mandate for taking my mask off one day out of 2 school years. And I only took that mask off to bring awareness to some kids who were struggling with the mask. And I was advocating for my kids. That's what I've always done. So that's why.
And more research. And the thing that I always find amazing is we always talk about follow the science. There's more and more research that is coming out that 2 years of wearing a mask for these kids has severely damaged some of them.
Yes. Pediatricians will tell you that there are deficits, there's more anxiety, there's more depression. And that's what I was seeing. That I was that teacher who worked with students on social skills and emotional needs. And I finally had to stand up for them.
Yeah. And full disclosure, folks, I have educators in my family. My wife is a paraeducator out in Reardon. And my daughter is a second grade teacher in Evanston, Wyoming. And 2 different philosophies. We have polar opposites, really. You have Washington's thought process and than what my daughter in Wyoming operated under. They didn't have masks. It was,
bet.
if you want to wear one, wear one. You know, it's up to you. And they didn't have massive meltdowns or anything else. And the kids behaved a lot better from just comparing notes from my wife and my daughter, and I can understand where.
Well, they connect
that
better
is.
with you. And we
Yes.
all know that students do better when they have a relationship with the adult.
And visually, because I mean, let's face it, wearing a mask, you're covering one of the most important parts of your body, and that's your face. The expressions of a face are huge in the cueing factors
Correct.
for people. Folks, that's why I don't like Zoom meetings. I don't like emails. I don't do things like that. If I have to say something to somebody, I go and chat face to face. That's kind of my standing rule. I mean, I get out of the office. I mean, it's kind of unique, but I think that old school, you said it, there's a connection
Yes.
formed by being able to see each other.
Well, and part of why I took off my mask, I, of course, have been asked the question. And so I always want to make this really clear. They're like, oh, you're an anti-masker. And I'm like, let's stop labeling, right? There's the divisiveness. I think there should be choice, parental choice. I will continue to say that parents should be the primary stakeholders in their children's lives, and they should choose what their child puts on their face and what goes in their body. That is where I stand.
I can understand those labels.
Yeah.
We don't have a mandate at the sheriff's office to be vaccinated. Most agencies in the state of Washington do not have that mandate. But because we don't have that mandate and we hire people that are unvaccinated, somehow I'm anti-vax, even though I'm vaccinated. Go
crazy.
figure that one out.
Yeah.
And even though I've done multiple public service announcement on why I think it's a good
seen
idea
it.
to get the vaccine. Suddenly I found myself labeled in the anti-vax world, and it's like you throw labels without thinking, and you look at all these issues without really thinking either. You bought dogma, you bought the political rhetoric, but when you really started closely analyzing the true science out there, much of what we were doing wasn't probably the right thing to be doing.
Correct.
And that's the issue that we find. What I see is most of the American people, one, don't really believe any side of this COVID issue anymore. They've lost faith. They've lost confidence in the messaging. Next steps as far as where do you wish to take this next? I mean, what's the next level of trying to have these discussions? Have you reached out throughout the state? Is there a statewide effort on this?
There is a statewide effort. There are parents that have come together calling themselves Washington Parents Alliance, and they're trying to learn law and find ways. And every conversation I have with this group is, how can we solve the problem? How can we help? It is never negative. It's always, how can we be part of the solution? And that's what I loved about this group. And so we're just trying to learn law and trying to learn our rights and trying to come up with some solutions. So that's where we're at.
While, all the while being labeled.
Oh, yes. Labeled the opposite of everything I just said.
Yeah. You know, I found meeting with your group, one of those times of you're just trying to have a discussion. You're trying to have an open, honest discussion. And by having those discussions, you actually reduce the stress levels of people.
Yeah.
You actually are able to bring and frame the issues and work towards solutions. You only hype the issue when you refuse to have that discussion. And watching your group and watching the things unfold around you, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
I saw that instead of having that dialogue, the demonization started. And when that started,
Parents got frustrated.
The division and frustration kept growing, and it was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. People started to get angry. Has been being one of the key figures of the group, has been really difficult trying to keep that anger pushed down.
Yeah. In fact, there's a video out there when things got a little frustrated at a school board meeting. And that was the first thing I did. I just tried to stand in front of everybody and calm everybody down and just say, we're all on the same side and let's figure out how to be heard. And that has always been my goal. How can we figure out how to be heard? And so I keep trying new strategies, and hopefully one of them will stick one of these days, but we're just trying to be heard. We're trying to let our school boards know that they've got a lot of amazing parents. If they would just sit down with them, they are intelligent, they are problem solvers. That's all they want to do. We want to be part of the solution, and we don't want to be ignored and not considered in any of the discussions, which is what's happening right now. We're just not even considered. They go do their policies, they go do their executive board meetings, and they make decisions without us. Well, they're our kids. It's our taxpayer dollars. We elected you. We are part of this process.
And that is where I see the great amount of frustration. There are a lot of missteps in handling this issue with parents. What I saw was school boards took an us against them mentality.
Isn't that sad? I just have to comment on that because that's not how it should be. It's not how I run my classroom. Yeah.
Very much so. And then I started seeing that grow at different levels of government all the way up to the office of president.
Yeah.
We had that letter sent out by the National Teachers Association, and next thing I know, people are talking about the FBI, crashing down on parent groups, and I'm like, how did we get here? Yeah. Why did I have to do a YouTube video going, excuse me, one, FBI, I do not need your help in this area, leave it alone, and two, why can't you guys, parents and school boards, figure this out and work together and not yell at each other?
Well, and I just want to say I appreciated that. It's part of the reason why I came directly to you. I wanted to make sure that we weren't lumped into that entire, what was it? The FBI was saying that we were terrorists.
Basically,
trying to label us terrorists. And so that's why seeing what you had to say, and I was going to come directly to you and able to go to the board and say, I've already gone to the sheriff. He already knows my intent.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was an amazing thing to watch. I mean, I never thought I would ever see in this country that I would have to stand up and go, no, you go over to your corner, you go over to your corner. And the message that I really wanted to drive home to all sides was, folks, the kids are watching. Your kids are watching what's going on here. Can we not be civil? Can we not teach them the proper way to have a dialogue, to work through stressful situations?
Right.
That was what was lost on this entire discussion, was the kids. I appreciated my opportunity to hear all sides. I've talked to school board members that are, they're afraid and things like that, and I get it. I understand that there's frustration on all parts, but the secret to that, reducing that frustration, is simple dialogue. It's simply sitting down and not losing your cool.
Right.
Listen to what the other side has to say and come up with viable solutions to help the kids, because that should be the focus, the kids navigate a very tough time in our country's history, and quite frankly, in their own development, because being a kid is not the easiest thing on earth.
No, especially right now.
Yeah.
And based on that, I also want to say to parents, kind of on the same topic of what you're talking about, is what can we come together on? I think we can all come together on parent choice. We don't have to have all these debates and these labels of vax and unvax and mask and unmask. I think we can all agree that parental choice. If you want your child and you feel that's best for them to wear a mask and get a vaccine, that's fantastic. Just respect those that have a different opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Our time is coming to a close. Did we cover most of what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was that parental choice. I want to make sure everybody out there knows that that is what I stand for. That is why I have done all the things I've done, bringing the group together and taking off my mask. And then I'd love to share good news with you. I have decided that because of all these things and because I want to stand for choice and stand for freedom and medical freedom, and I love my city, I am going to run for Washington State Representative, District 3, Position 2.
Well, congratulations.
So I'm excited.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And we'll have you back on the show to discuss that platform and where you'd like to take the state and the reasons behind it. So
Absolutely. Thank
thank
you.
you for standing up and trying to have the dialogue, even though you got painted with a label.
Hopefully this brings it back
Yeah,
to what I
we
need to
can
be labeled.
Bring it back in. But, my best advice to you is don't listen to the critics
Thank you.
because they're always going to be there. Sean Vestal's poison pen is always going to be there. Matter of fact, he's probably, refilling it right now because of your announcement. I really feel bad for Sean. I've had a good relationship with Sean for many years, not so much since about 2016, but I do have some pity for him because he's drank this hate.
Yeah.
And I hope that someday he'll reflect on the damage he does to people without ever even knowing them, without even ever getting to understand where they are. It's easy, Sean, to sit at your computer, type the vile hate that comes out of it without ever having to look at somebody in the eyes and understand that they're not the demon that you are painting. Good luck.
Thank you.
I look forward to watching that race unfold. We'll have
Yeah.
you back. This is Sheriff Ozzie
Thank
Knezovich
you.
with the Sheriff's Report. Have a great day.
This is Dave Reynolds with Source Real Estate. Our secret is our 1% listing fee. All the services, marketing, photography, and more for a 1% listing fee, saving you thousands. May the source be with you. 999-8878 and visit sourcerealestate.com.
Hi, this is Larry Myers, normally at River Ridge Hardware, here at Peters Hardware, where I've been blessed to be able to buy it. Initially started in 1934 by Bill Peters, and I was blessed to be able to purchase that from the Peters family. Peters Hardware is located at 12118 East Sprague, enter off of Pines and First. We have all the quality home products that you need, including quality paint now where we can match any color that you want. We're here for you for all your home needs. Come on by to Peters Hardware in Spokane Valley.